Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, I'm so pleased to be here. I think it's such a great show.
Thank you so much. So, we're obviously talking about the students in Parkland, Florida, who dealt with this tragedy on February 14th. I want to get into how they're reacting to it and the steps that they're taking. But first, do you have any insights on why this time seems so different and why the students are reacting this way this time?
I think it's a matter of, having come full circle that this is happening so frequently and that the more the media covers it, the more important it becomes. It like goes exponential. And I would really love to talk about directly how Emma Gonzalez really impacted this movement, because I think it's so important for other people who want to create their own movements, who want to, whatever their cause is or whatever their mission is, how they can get it out there in the public and how they can bring it to the forefront of the media, whether it's come that way naturally or not, or if that's something that they want to bring attention to. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think that leads right into the next question, which is what about how these students have reacted and what they're doing to try to get some more gun control and change the laws? What has stood out about how these students are reacting to this?
I think the first thing is just using Emma as a fantastic example. Oh, no opinions now, but as an example of some things that we should follow, whether we agree with anything that she says or not. The way that she handled herself and the way that this movement and the other students are handling themselves is something that we can all take a lesson for. So number one, I think, is she planned out her points that very concisely. And one of the things that she did so well is that, and it was really unusual because she had both super strong emotion and yet vulnerability at the same time. And sometimes that doesn't work with media. Like if we're too emotional and we can't get our points out, then it's like we're feeling it, but the audience isn't. But in this case, she was feeling it and still was so strong. So being both strong and vulnerable at the same time was really very unique, to be able to wipe away her tears, still get her points out and stay on track. That is something that I think we can all follow. The second thing that she did is give perspective. And again, whether you agree with it or not, she said things like she had her facts and stats and all of the situation encapsulated. And what I mean by that is she talked about, the 30 million supporting Trump, the NRA supporting him 30 million. And then she broke that down to say that that was 5,800 per person, like the worth of a person. And we all know that we can't put worth on a person, and that seems actually absurd to say that one person would be worth $5,800. But what she did is she took that big number of 30 million and brought it down to a super personal, a person, a student, your child, your daughter, another student.
And in case anyone didn't see that, the $30 million that she says the NRA gave to President Trump for his campaign. So that's what she was talking about. And then she broke that down.
That.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the other thing that she did that was really exemplary is she did a call and response. She actually talked to the audience, got their response back. This is very typical in gospel. In gospel churches. So it's like we call to you, you call back, and it creates this energetic circle. So she's not only talking to the students in the audience when she says, I forgot what it was she was actually saying, like no BS, no BS, no BS. And that became the repetition of it, which Trump uses, he's a master at repetition. And she used that same kind of repetition, but in a very different way, and to get the audience and to connect the audience into that circle of repetition. No BS, we don't want BS anymore. And I think what's bringing this to the forefront is listening to our children actually say this of what they want from us, and they're demanding better behavior and better rules from adults to protect them. Now, how can anyone argue with that? Again, whether you agree with it or not, isn't it our job as parents, as teachers, as people who are older than students, to take care of them and to create laws and to create situations in order to create a safe environment for education and for children to live?
Without some of those strategies that she used, whether she really knew it or not at the time,
Yeah.
could this have fallen on deaf ears?
I think so. I think it was so well orchestrated. And she said that she learned she thanked in another speech on CNN, she thanked one of her teachers for teaching her how to do this, And so we are a circle as well. The students are learning from their teachers. We're learning from students. We're learning from our children. And it's not a one-way street. Our kids have enormous wisdom, and this goes to show that is really, something to really pay attention to and how they did that. And then obviously kids knows how to use social media, so, oh my God. Right?
That is exactly what I was going to ask next. So that is perfect, because the same student, Emma Gonzalez, said in another article that when she first started trending on Twitter, she had no idea really how to use that platform. And she had to talk with her friends and other people to make sure that she was trending on Twitter and she really utilized that. How can people use social media, and what did they do right to take it beyond the speech that went viral and make sure that, all of a sudden she has how many of her followers, that she's using that on a continuous basis?
Well, the never again, I mean, that is not only, the hashtag that they chose, but the words never again are also very powerful. So to choose that and then to have everyone be able to key into it, it's like, it is still using, was it Jung that was the theory of the 100th monkey? I can't remember, but it was when one monkey washed his banana on a shore in like the South Pacific, another monkey washed a banana in England. So it's about connecting our minds together through one focal point, and to be able to do that with a hashtag it seems sort of crazy on one hand, but that is the banana. The hashtag is the banana that creates the focal point for all the students then to key in, to be able to coordinate amongst each other, which was also quite remarkable that this could be coordinated across the country with something as simple as a hashtag. And it's not as simple as a hashtag, but the kind of awareness that the kids started really thinking, like, this is so important to all of us, to be safe and to be have an environment where there are laws that are protecting us, especially when this could have been prevented and prevent this in the future. Okay, this one was not prevented, but that does not mean that this can't be prevented in the future. And let's work toward that right now.
And I think with today's news cycle, it would have been easy to be the headline for a couple of days, and then it kind of goes away. And maybe the lawmakers wouldn't be looking at this and really taking serious action like they are if they didn't keep at it. But at the same time, these are students who have obviously been through so much trauma. How do you think they balance the trauma they've been through and having to really be in the spotlight? And is that something that they have to take into account when they're getting out in front of the cameras?
I think when there's so much support and you feel it, we always talk about, like even Mr. Rogers talked about, he didn't believe that he could have his own show. And it was one person who believed in Mr. Rogers that thought that he could do it, that allowed him to do it. So when you have kids all believing in each other, whether the parents believe them or not, or the lawmakers believe it's possible, they believe it, and they believe in themselves and each other. And there's nothing more powerful than someone having faith in you. And when we're talking hundreds, thousands, millions, that's a lot of psychic, spiritual, emotional energy. And I don't think that we can discount that in any way. Whatever you believe, there is power in someone believing in you and taking action. And that's one thing that Emma emphasized too. It's not enough to sit on your duff and think, I hope things change. It's about here, I want things to change, and here is the pathway that we're going to take in order to make that change. And that's what's also extremely powerful, is that they are providing the pathways. They're saying that, we want those background checks. We want the gun laws to change. We want to have less support and money coming into the government. And we want these lawmakers to make changes, and we want them to make changes now, not tomorrow. Yeah.
And they've also done a great job of setting an event for the future. So they're kind of demanding stuff now, but they've also said on March 24th, we're doing a rally, a March for Our Lives rally in Washington, D.C. And if you can't come to D.C., do it in your community. What does that do for their movement to kind of have that date set and try to get more people involved in it?
You know, I haven't read A Wrinkle in Time in quite some time, but it was one of my favorite books growing up. And I remember it was like Mind Think. It was like when one person bounced a ball, everybody got in sync with the bouncing the ball. And then, you know, and it was the evil mind that controlled everybody bouncing the ball. But this is the opposite. This is the good mind controlling bouncing the ball. Each of those pods, each of those schools is a bouncing ball. And each person bouncing a ball at the same time is creating and continuing that momentum. And that we are going to keep this alive. We are going to keep the ball bouncing in our community. And it's going to go from community to community to community to community. And just keep making that cycle. And and to be able to, you know, for the kids to be able to have met with President Trump, what kind of feat is that? Who gets an audience with the president? You know, and with the audience, and Emma then Gonzalez got, you know, audience with an NRA that I forgot her name, the woman, you know, one of the spokeswoman from the NRA. I mean, this is some intense stuff. This is powerful. I mean, people don't get meetings like that most of the time on their own, right? So
yeah, and with so many different opinions out there, just to come together and talk about it, they've really made sure that we're all talking, that each side is kind of talking to each other, which that doesn't always happen anymore.
No, it doesn't. And it's so important. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I have differing opinions from some of the neighbors that I love. And I was like, you know, we kind of don't talk about these things. And she said, you know what? It's actually important to talk about it, because we kind of want to keep the peace. We have differing opinions. We love each other, but we're on opposite ends of the spectrum. And I thought, you know what? She's right. We do, just to start to have a conversation around it. It does. I think that in our politically correct climate, we're afraid to disagree, and we're afraid to say things that are not necessarily offensive, but we're afraid to say things that start the rub. And I think that we really want to open a conversation and not worry so much if somebody is rubbing you the wrong way or saying something that you disagree with. So what? You know, let's have a conversation around it. Let's see what you think. Back it up by facts. Back it up by your opinion. You can have your feelings. Nobody can dispute your feelings, but also nobody can dispute facts. You know, so have your facts, have your statistics, have your feelings, have your opinions, and know each one for what they are, and have a lively discussion around it. You know? That's what I think.
What you said earlier too, which is have the emotion, but don't let the emotion take over so you can't even get your point across. And it's finding that balance.
Yes, have the emotion, but don't impose your emotion or your feelings on someone else and try to shut them down. You know, I think that's important too, to keep an open mind, even if you're thinking to yourself, no way, no way, no way, and I can't stand what they're thinking. It's really about saying, okay, I disagree with them. Keep an open mind, open to another possibility that maybe I've never seen before, and to really school yourself in that. Like, I have a judgment. I can't stand you, and you're different than I am, you know, and hear that, not try to shut that down, but go, oh, I just had a judgment about them, and I just had a judgment about their opinion. I think they're wrong. Okay, so then let it go, open your mind, and keep that process going.
Anything else you'd want to add about this whole movement?
I would like to see it keep going, and for us to come to some kind of conclusions that at least make some headway and some changes so this doesn't happen again. Whatever that is, I think that it's super important to keep the portals open and talking about this. And even if it's one thing at a time, or one, you know, like, you know, just like people were talking about, not having, you know, mentally impaired people be able to purchase it, to start to have some laws that go across the board to gun shows, to gun lobby, you know, to start to, what I want to say is to start to implement it consistently across the board. So we can all, once there's an agreement, let's pull it across the board and then move on to the next point until we can agree on that. I think when you have so many different points at once, it's really hard to get an agreement. Let's get a small agreement, get it in place, pull it across the board, and then continue the discussion. And that way, in small incremental changes, we can start moving forward and keeping our kids safe and our school safe and all of us safe.
Yeah. Really good points. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure.